Welcome to Athletes, Entrepreneurs, the Alumni Journey. I'm Rob Finkelstein, founder and CEO of Alumni Direct. We've created a platform to help athletes and other alumni network and connect with each other. But more importantly, this podcast is all about helping athletes transition out of sport. It's such a major issue today: financial literacy, mental health. And when we talk to former college and professional athletes, we talk about their journey ultimately into successful business leadership and entrepreneurship. And the whole idea is to teach athletes that there is, in fact, life after sports. So excited today to have Jack Stewart. How you doing, Jack?
I'm doing well, Rob. Thank you for taking the time. I really appreciate it and look forward
It's
to
my
speaking with you.
Yeah, for sure. It's my pleasure. And so Jack was a soccer player. He played at Notre Dame and then went on to have a successful career in the MLS as well as USL. He played it in Chicago, Dallas, Salt Lake in the MLS, and then the USL, Minnesota, Fort Lauderdale. Had a nice conversation with that because I'm based in the Boca Raton area, so I know Fort Lauderdale real well. And then once he got done with soccer, he got into sports tech, got into some different types of sales positions in HR. And ultimately today, he is the founder of Cool Factor Cryo, which is an amazing franchise opportunity coming up. And just he's going to tell you about all the exciting things that they're doing in helping athletes and both youth athletes all the way through professional athletes. So, Jack, let's talk about playing sports growing up. How did that shape you leading up into college?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was the one of the greatest things to do as a youth, especially coming out of California with all of the fun distractions with beach and the girls. But sports was a great focus for me growing up and just kind of allowed me to socialize, interact with different cultures and different people, and really kind of shaped the experiences of my youth. I think one of the great things is I was on a fairly successful youth soccer club. We had the privilege of traveling around the country and the globe, representing the United States in a lot of tournaments. So just getting to see how everybody lives, from going into South Africa and playing in the Nike Cup down there, going down to Mexico and playing some of the top Mexican academies, and just really being cultured when we had this very diverse group of athletes, and we're still in contact today, which is great and fun.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, that's going to be a good segue into some of the other things we talk about too. Just that whole the relationships that you build in sports. So when you went to Notre Dame, one thing we talk a lot about is the education of transition out of sport. So when you were there, was there any type of education, and not just like a one-day workshop, but more kind of like curriculum set up to ultimately to help athletes in the future, whether they just play college or whether they ultimately play professional like you? Was there any courses in transition out of sport?
No, not necessarily. I think most people, maybe it's changed for the last 20 years around people are going to college. So I think it was very college first. Make sure you get your degree. So go into classes focusing on that marketing degree. So there wasn't necessarily like, Jack, you're going to be the next generation soccer player in the US. You're going to have this, hey, we're going to teach you what it's like to be a marketing expert here at the University of Notre Dame in the business school. So it really wasn't anything tying the two together. But I would say that Notre Dame had an amazing support system for athletes, with counselors, extra coaching or tutoring if needed to help on that journey. And so that's kind of where that aspect really came into play, is supporting the athlete on their journey of, hey, you might make it. And I think Jerome Bettis is a perfect example of this, where I don't believe he graduated because he left a little bit early, but then came back and did his degree. So at least Notre Dame was great on making sure you focus on the education part of it so that you are literate in lots of different fields, as well as making sure you're prepared and supporting you if you have that amazing opportunity to play a professional sport after your Notre Dame athletic career.
Yeah, that's great. And it's a tribute to Notre Dame to doing that. 'Cause I think a lot of schools, like you said, it's probably getting better now, but I still think there's a need for improvement. And, we've talked about going in with some of our research partners into schools, into the athletic department, and talking about, curriculum and providing additional curriculum, not only for the current athletes, but also for the alumni athletes. So when the time comes and you are done, it'd be nice to know that you can come back to your alma mater and tap into different resources.
Absolutely. And I think Notre Dame is, from my last conversation with the Monogram Club, which is a great program for ex-athletes to come back and support new programs and things like you just mentioned, Rob. But one of the things is really tapping into the alumni networks and making sure the athletes are prepared for what, life after sport, whether that is day one after the 4 years or 8 years into a career. They're working through that and making sure they're going to put their athletes and student athletes not athlete students in the
Right.
right setup to be successful. And I know there's a bunch of initiatives going on right now from the Monogram Club at Notre Dame supporting that endeavor. But Notre Dame is one. So it's just now, how do you get those philosophies into other institutions?
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, we had one of our previous guests, and we talked about this a little offline. Brandon Curry is an organization called LAND, Life After Notre Dame. So another tying into helping the Notre Dame athletes out, which is great. It's great to see that. So let's talk a little about networking, connecting. Talk about the importance of it, especially while you're still playing the game.
Yeah, I mean, I'll even go back to just in school at Notre Dame or college or wherever you're going. There is an institution of alumni networks, depending whether your school is big or small. Really buying into that networking with alumni, I think, was the starting point for the networking that I did as a professional athlete. And Notre Dame soccer did a great job during my 4 years there of really connecting legacy Notre Dame soccer players with the current squad and building a culture above and beyond just what we were doing on campus and playing. So we had the original guys that were playing club sport at Notre Dame coming back to games whenever we would travel. They would come out, they would host dinners. And then now you're looking at 43. I look at that network and see of all the great connections that I've made, from cap raising to energy services here in Texas, and a handful of different other unique and successful people to help support the athlete after the career. But from a professional athlete's perspective, it was really just kind of connecting with community, connecting with the brands that are supporting the club to really find your way through of like, hey, how do I monetize myself? And how can I have these connections that will lead into something bigger later on after a playing career? But I will say, Rob, one of the hardest challenges is thinking about the future when you're living in the moment. Because as a professional athlete, the most important thing is getting the maximum out of that career. So you kind of have those blinders on and you're just like, what can I do? You're a little bit selfish, probably more than you should be. So you're not looking at, this could end tomorrow. You're trying to put all the energy and effort on what it is today. And I think that would be one of the biggest takeaways, is how do you continue to expand that vision of who can help me? Like, can I go learn a little bit more here, learn a little bit more there from different stakeholders within each organization that you play in?
Yeah, it's interesting you said the whole thing with the blinders, because I've had conversations with agents and they've said their players, understandably so, you're playing your sport, you're a professional athlete, that they do have the blinders on, but then they encourage that you should be networking, like even whether it's in the off seasons or time that you have, because when they get done, all of a sudden they're like, okay, where's my job? Where's my six-figure sales job? Whatever it might be. And it's not necessarily out there because they haven't created those relationships. And you touched on earlier too about starting young. I think I always encourage, even in high school, you've got your teammates and their parents and the coaches and different people. It's just start at a young age and don't be intimidated by networking. Like, look at it as this is something that you might be like, how can I help somebody at my age? Well, maybe they have kids and they want you to work with their kids, or they want to relive their sports memories.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, coming from the HR side that you mentioned, one of the great things is that now in business, you typically have these skip level reviews where you go, you don't talk to your manager, but you talk to the CEO in essence, or someone above them, just to get a different take on how the business is. But there's the other side where the CEO tries to figure out and understand what that younger person and that younger mindset is thinking. What's
Right.
important and valuable to the next generation? How do you iterate using that information as you go through? But one of the guys I do want to shout out, and I haven't spoken to him, but from terms of networking, is this gentleman named Spencer Keith Jones. He plays for the Denver Nuggets. He's a Stanford grad, but he's actually embraced going out in every city that he travels to, because you're afforded this ability to travel the world or travel the US. And he tries to make it a goal whenever they're traveling to go see one new tech enabled sports business or tech business in that city that he's traveling to. So he spends a lot of time, again, taking those blinders off and thinking about it holistically of like, hey, I'm traveling to Philly this weekend. Let's go see if I can talk to player data because they have this really cool tech platform. So, there's a ton of opportunity in this networking world. It's just making sure you take advantage of.
Yeah, no, that sounds great. Got to tap into him, right?
Yeah.
It sounds like he's doing some cool things. I mean, you hear some stories of some of these athletes just really, more so when they're done with their career. So it's great that he's doing it now, just kind of creating that future plan. So one thing I talk a lot about from a networking perspective too is that kind of across sports with different athletes. So it seems a lot of times it tends to be funneled the football players with the football, basketball, maybe not the other sports, but at least those two, baseball, soccer with soccer. But how do you find that, especially at the professional level? Was there interaction networking amongst different athletes across different sports?
It's an interesting question. I'm trying to think from city to city. It's uniquely different. I think it's getting a lot better now because of the basis of salaries are getting normalized to a degree. But yeah, I think like in a small city when I was in Salt Lake, it was us and the Jazz, and then the Bees, the baseball team. So there was a lot of, hey, you're all professional athletes in the same group. Chicago, it was more from a social endeavor, so you network that way. But yeah, I think that there could be more, but there wasn't a lot from a professional level. Definitely in college is uniquely different because you're in the same athlete community. It's just a little bit harder in the professional ranks because it is a business and there are business challenges with that. But it's that's where that if you're a basketball player, it's easy to network with your basketball crew. Soccer with soccer because you're going to be have like-minded experiences. The seasonality of the sports as well, but it was always something that we enjoyed doing. But it was probably more from my end a participation in going and attending games.
So kind of like individualized. I mean, you see that too. You always watch on TV some of these games, and you'll see, especially at the high level, you see these star athletes that the baseball players are sitting at the basketball game. I'm sure, like even yeah, like I saw the Knicks game last night. You got probably all these professional athletes
Yeah.
from different sports there watching the game.
Yeah, it's a lot easier when you're retired, like Jeter and Eli, to sit on the court side and watch that game.
It is. I'm a big Giants fan, so it brought a tear to my eye seeing Eli there.
Was it a tear of joy or a tear of sorrow? Because
I don't know. I guess there was a lot more joy with Eli than there's been about the last 10 years. We got Jackson Dart now, so I'm feeling pretty good about that. I think you
that's
might be
right.
him and Camp Scadabo are ready to do some things. So we'll see what happens
Yeah,
there.
the one-two punch.
Exactly. Yeah. So let's talk a little about, and you touched on it a little bit with alumni engagement, but kind of go back at Notre Dame. So you said specific to soccer, it sounds like they did a phenomenal job. Was that something that was kind of prevalent across all sports where they were bringing back the alumni athletes to kind of mentor, not just for like the homecoming game, but just more so to
Yeah.
work with the current athletes?
Again, I think 20 years ago, it was very segmented into your sport. And I think the Monogram Club at Notre Dame has done a terrific job of engaging athletes and getting them to come back, whether that's through an advocacy program. But from a soccer perspective, I think Notre Dame soccer was one of the first programs that and did this. And that was really because of the coach, Bobby Clark. And Bobby did it at Stanford. He did it at Dartmouth, where you want to have this buy-in from the alumni group because it's the quickest way to get your fandom and build out these lists because that alumni network is craving information of how the program is doing because it's really the last time, I guess now, not necessarily more, so I don't know if I should say that, but it's the last time that you're really playing for something bigger than yourself
Right.
because you're playing for the community around you, right? You're playing for that university because, like I said, when you get into professional sports, it does become a business. So, but yeah, Notre Dame soccer, it was Bobby Clark really started it. The program continues to have this network and it grows every single year. So now you have the alumni members coming back to when Notre Dame soccer won the national championship. You had a huge alumni contingent coming to those games and just really helps support that fan base and network
Yeah.
that is there. I do know that all other sports are doing that now at Notre Dame, which is great.
Okay.
But I think those are monogram initiatives, and the Monogram Club of Notre Dame is fantastic as well because they always reach out with pertinent information. They'll give you a phone call. They're very responsive to all those things, but it's not necessarily tied back to the sport that you played in college.
Yeah, and I'm sure, and you hear like the competing factors too, because you'll have your alumni association from the school itself, and then the athletic department typically, it seems like they kind of silo and have two different initiatives, so to speak.
Yeah, I think, I mean, that's still I guess, accurate. I mean, I don't hear much from the school around, but it's just been more around the football tickets and the seasonality of it. But the Monogram Club does a great job of keeping everybody engaged. Even simple, silly things like the new Monogram wearables or kits where you get your cardigan and a few, special things that are only, beneficial to the Monogram Club. So those are always fun perks to be a part of and play into.
They still have like Letterman jackets, or is that a thing of the past?
Well, yeah, I would go put mine on right now, but it's in California.
Yeah, recently it was good. I had the opportunity. I lost some weight, and I went back in the closet. I had my high school letter jacket from my
There we
days of
go.
running, and it fit. I was surprised. I was happy with that. So,
Yeah. No, it's the badge of honor, the Notre Dame Letterman's jacket.
yeah, and then of course there's the whole Rudy story too, right?
Absolutely.
That definitely everybody thinks Rudy with Notre Dame, which is great. I don't know if you had a chance to watch or listen to any of the episodes. So if not, I always ask this question. Fun question. It's not hard, but if we're gonna play a little Back to the Future, okay? And
All
so
right.
we're gonna hop in the DeLorean, and we're gonna go back to freshman year. 10 words or less. What advice would you give to freshman Jack?
What advice would I give to freshman Jack? I think it would be focus on the things you can control is really what I would probably tell my freshman self with spiky bleach blonde hair and a full on tan coming from California. Yeah, it's just focus on what you can control, because it's always the one thing where you can't help the schedule, you can't help any of those things. But that's what I would tell freshman Jack is focus on what you can control.
All right, now let's fast forward to senior Jack.
Senior Jack, I would, yeah, I'd say the world is your oyster. Go seize the moment. Don't wait for it.
That's great. And it was good because you didn't really, sometimes people are like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So, they're counting out to 10 words. You did a great job on that.
Yeah, I was going to
So,
write them down.
so once you're done with your college playing and then, you went on to play professionally, talk a little about the transition from college to professional athletics.
Yeah, I think I've said it a few times, but it really becomes you're focused and the mentality changes a little bit to you want to build a team and you're into your new family and organization. But at the end of the day, it is a business. There are results that are need to be had. Everyone in that organization, yes, wants the best for the team, wants to get results. But there is this underlying business contract negotiation, all those things that come into play that make it not as sexy and fun as the playing it at your university. But yeah, it was the one thing that was the toughest thing to kind of come to grasp with is that you become expendable to a degree. Being a journeyman athlete every year and a half to 2 years, a new city, being traded, the league was growing. You just kind of really, you're like, hey, you want to find your home? And I'm like, I wish I would have been in Chicago for 10 years and it would have been great, but that's just not how professional sports is. So that was the one thing I think that was a culture shock is like now you have to get up, move everything, find a new peer group and do that over and over again while still perfecting your craft.
Okay. Now let's talk about your transition out of from soccer in general. So like your whole life you played sports, you played soccer growing up playing youth sports, played in college and professionally. Now the soccer journey's over. I'm sure you're still kind of active a little bit with that, but what was that transition like?
Yeah, for me, I mean, everyone knew U.S. Soccer Jack or sports, whatever name you have. And so trying to lean on the network and discuss and do things, they always just think of you as Jack the soccer player. But in terms of that transition, I think there's one by going to Notre Dame, having that and graduating and having that piece of paper to be able to go into the next phase of a career and figure out what I wanted to do was a lot easier than most. But I think for the longest time, even as a kid, while I was going into Notre Dame or going to go play in the MLS, right off the gate as a 17-year-old, the quickest thing, I guess, is understanding that time frame of playing was going to come to an end and you needed to figure out what was going to happen afterwards. And that was always told by my parents, by counselors, by coaches I would talk to, is the career is finite. So let's make sure you are thinking of things during your playing career and thinking about how to leverage that network or leverage different ideas during the playing career. So for me, it wasn't as I guess, shocking as some others. I was ready for it, but the only thing is I didn't know what I wanted to do. And that's why I have this Goldilocks story of which bed makes the most sense, and kind of led me into entrepreneurship at the end of the day. But it was really finding out the world of marketing had changed in the 10-year career from traditional marketing to digital. So I'm like, do you go back to school and try to learn, or is it something that you just have to figure out and go explore? And I did the exploring journey, but it led me to developing Cool Factor, which is great.
Yeah, that's awesome. And a couple last things related to that. Maybe give some words of advice to athletes, whether it's high school, college, or if they're fortunate to play professional like yourself. Give some advice to how to kind of prepare for the transition out of the sports.
Yeah, I think it's changing. It's flipping what athletes are really good at. Athletes are good at doing. We're good at instruction and just doing it and getting the job done. Very kind of militant in that degree, right? Like the Navy SEALs. It's just like they're whatever that wall is, we're going to get over it. It doesn't matter how or what, and I think athletes have that same mindset to a degree. So my only big piece of advice is always be curious. Always ask why, necessarily in a challenging way, but just ask to understand. And so if you don't know something, which when you take off your uniform and put your business shirt on or your suit and tie on, whatever it is, you're just doing that. You're in a different world. Just ask the question. Yes, you have to get the job done not at any means necessary, but you have to get the job done. But always ask questions like, hey, do we want it to be done this way? I don't know is also very acceptable. But if you don't know, just go figure it out. So that's the one thing I would say is, always be curious, always ask those questions and understand, because it is a different sport that it's a different venue. You're trying to understand, hey, how do I succeed in this venue? And, just like I said, that's that thing that most athletes are afraid of, is asking the question, because they want to look like the know-it-all.
All right, good advice there. Those are the nuggets I talk about. So, talk about, before we get into Cool Factor, talk about being an entrepreneur, like how, as an athlete, that translates into becoming an entrepreneur.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of going back to those training days, right? The things that you do behind closed doors. Are you doing the right things from a workout perspective, eating perspective, training perspective? It's like if you translate that into your entrepreneurship, it's what are you doing for the business? Are you doing everything? Are you putting that same energy and effort into becoming a successful entrepreneur as you did as a successful athlete? And those are for me the translatable skills, because now it's technically to a degree in your control, and it's now just doing whatever it needs to be done to be successful.
Yep. That sounds good. So let's talk about Cool Factor Cryo. Okay, this is near and dear to your heart as a founder of the company. Just talk about maybe the genesis of it, and then get into some of the different great things that you're doing.
Yeah, Cool Factor Cryo. We started the business about 4 years ago. I was just out with one of the travel leagues that are out there called the ECNL, and was talking to one of their event managers. And I'm like, hey, you have this really captive audience. You're the best, you have the best women's players in the country. There's this really unique pathway to them getting into college, scouted for the national team. You talk about periodization, but there's really no recovery on the field for the athletes. And it just kind of brought me back to my playing career and being able to have access to your cold plunges, your saunas, everything kind of at your fingertips to recover, because you become your body is the tool that you use to be successful in professional athletics. But it's now, how do we educate this next generation of athletes on the importance of recovery and health and wellness in general? So built one of the first ever mobile cryotherapy vehicles. We had 2 cryotherapy chambers in it, 20 leg compressions, worked on a couple of ECNL events, and you just see the throughput of what it did for the athletes, and how the success off the back of that led to a couple of teams performing better in their championship games, which were the following week in a different state. So after that, I didn't think it was going to be more than just one vehicle, but quickly realized that there was an opportunity had there because of the the travel circuits that are out there, and took the time and really started developing this into a health and wellness business, and ultimately a franchising opportunity for brands, not brands, but for people, and then working with brands on how to get in front of that audience and being the final touch point for a brand to come in and try products in the health and wellness space. Because right now I think there's a huge gap in health and wellness, especially in the youth. It's becoming more popular from an adult perspective with the peptides, the GLP-1s. All of these things are prevalent, and now people are starting to think about the health and wellness side a little bit. But it's now trying to understand how we ingrain this into habits and forming habits at a young age as an athlete, so that you can extend that longevity of your career, very similar to how Tom Brady, Cristiano Ronaldo, I mean, LeBron James, they're all spending millions of dollars a year on their body to recover. And we just bring this really amazing vehicle to recover when and where people want it most. And that's typically right after the games on the field. And that infrastructure currently isn't set up today. So there's a huge opportunity for these rolling assets to be prevalent in the field at tournaments or in corporate wellness as well.
How big are the trucks?
So there's a couple of different versions, but they're roughly around. It's a 26 box truck that you'll see from like Enterprise is our go to market vehicle. We're working on iterating different smaller formats just because of nuances in different cities. But for the most part, it's a 26-foot box truck or a 26-foot trailer that can be dropped off and driven around to each one of these different sports complexes or businesses and campuses.
Yeah, so how many people would typically could fit in the truck?
Great question. So still we have 20 leg compression. So the leg compression chairs are done outside of the vehicle underneath tents. And then depending on the format of what people get, you can have 3 to 4 people inside the cryo chamber at one time. And there are 3 to 5 minute sessions where people can easily walk in and walk out. But the goal and mindset is taking a team of 20 to 22 soccer players, have some in waiting for 30 minutes in the leg compression, have a team going through the cryotherapy where they can get done with their recovery circuit in 30 minutes and then be on to, getting food, hydration, and do all the other things that are very important for those tournament weekends.
And that's all like the hydration, the food, is that all part of it as well? Like that's in that like a kind of a pop-up type area?
That is the food and nutrition is not a part of Cool Factor today. It will be in the future, but right now we're dialing in the serviceability part of it before we start thinking about nutritional supplements and food, because not only is recovery so individualized and needs to be tailored, we're doing it at a very big level, kind of just going grassroots of it and really being the gateway drug to health and wellness. So the leg compressions, the cryotherapy, things that aren't going to be ingested, because that's the other fuel that you're going to need to think about to help you perform, along with making sure you're getting the proper sleep.
And how many staff typically would be involved with each truck?
Oh, yeah, that's a great question. It really just depends on the operation or the event. So if we show up during the week in our weekly route-based business, you can do it with one person and go through the setup. It just depends on the number of people and throughput you want. But on a tournament weekend, we like to say a minimum of 3 to help staff. So you have typically one person running the cryo, one person helping out with retail, one person helping people get into the leg compressions, and really trying to make it a fun and enjoyable experience, because it's typically the first time that they're hearing or even coming into what we'll call our recovery lab.
So now, as you grow, do you envision at some point would you need, like, say, multiple trucks, vehicles at one event, like if it was a big enough event?
Absolutely. I think there's opportunity for it. I mean, we haven't, I guess there's probably 2 or 3 events that we've been to. They're mostly at Coachella, the big complex there. They do a big lacrosse tournament every winter called Sandstorm, where there's, I think, 1.5 million participants that come out for the weekend.
That's huge.
If you're doing one of the bigger festivals, the most of the tournaments that we're working with, there's been, I mean, I still think it's probably 3 years away before we do multiple vehicles at a place, but that's a good problem to have if we do, because that means there's adoption which is what we're trying to get an education for the parents, players of the benefits of what recovery will do for their game, and not only just for the weekend, but also just holistically for their career. So how can we help that 8-year-old understand what recovery is and why they're doing it? They might not necessarily see the inherent benefits right away because of the elasticity of the 8-year-olds, but they'll start habit forming of, this is what I do. It's part of my curriculum and routine. It's that feel good thing. I think we spoke about this earlier, but like I think about my playing career growing up is I would go play a tournament weekend, but I would just go eat fast food right after because it was convenient, quick, and easy. And my
Sure.
parents, we wanted to get home. But now, if we can replace that with better food, recovery right after the game, and then now we're into the week, that really starts the parent conversation is like, if you do recovery in the right way, the kids get enough sleep, how do they perform in school? It's all of these little nuances, not only from a sports performance perspective, but also really looking at it as how do we better people and get them to perform better in whatever it is they're doing. And sports just is the sports and youth sports is just the main vehicle, what I know most to be able to support that mechanism.
All right. And then kind of wrapping it up, what about franchising? Anything to add on that?
Yeah, so we've just pressed play on the franchising side of the business, which is really, really exciting. It's taking all those Goldilocks moments that I had after playing to set us up for this amazing journey that we're about to go on. So we are franchising. If you're interested in learning more about franchising for Cool Factor, you can email Jack at coolfactorcryo.com and we can talk about where we're going. But the whole US is fairly open. And we're really excited about the opportunity that it brings for people compared to setting up a brick and mortar business. You have access to control your own destiny to a degree, which is really exciting. And you don't have that overhead cost of rent, build outs that could take time and delay. So there's lots of real positives in the mobile wellness business. And from a franchising standpoint, health and wellness is one of the hottest industries right now, and mobility is also very big because of that inherent capex that you have to spend on space. So it's a really compelling and exciting offering that we're stoked to get out there in the market for people, and I'm excited about the helping on the other side and helping identify and find and fund new millionaires, which is you want to find the like-minded people that can be there, and it's going to be a really exciting journey.
That sounds great. So everybody definitely, if you're looking to get into franchising, and especially athletes out there, because that's a great transition out of sport to getting into franchising. What a better way to go. A little Cool Factor Cryo there, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. It's a great segue to go into the things because it keeps you in the sport. And that's the real
Sure.
fun for me is after retiring, I coached a bunch and this is now just a new form of coaching, but you get to speak to people in a different way and actually still enhance and increase performance, but you get to touch more people than the 18 players that I had. I get to now be open to the whole tournament or ecosystem as well.
Yeah. Okay. So that this has been great. You mentioned before, but how can people find you?
But yeah, you can go to coolfactor.com. And then if you want to reach out on some other, on the franchising side, you can reach out to Jack, that's JACK, at coolfactorcryo.com.
All right. Well, this has been great. As we talk about each week, I always say Jack and all the other guests have been amazing about just, I call them the nuggets and just giving some great nuggets. And, we really want to make an impact and help athletes out. And I think don't wait until things are dire. I mean, just there's people out there that care and want to do it. And you can find us at alumnidirect.com. The podcast is across Spotify and Apple. You can also find it on our YouTube channel. And once again, Jack, thanks. This has been great and good luck with everything.
Thanks, Rob. It was a pleasure.
Mine as well.